My name is Grace Turner, and I'm 29 years old. If you had asked anyone in my family a year ago, they would have said I was the difficult one. The one who never smiled enough in family photos, never wore the dresses my mother picked out, never quite fit the mold they had prepared for a proper daughter. I was always too blunt, too independent, too different. But nothing ever prepared me for the day I was publicly humiliated at my sister's wedding, blamed for something I didn't do, disowned by my parents in front of hundreds of guests, all while my sister cried crocodile tears and played the perfect victim. It started like a dream. The wedding was held at a luxurious vineyard estate just outside Napa Valley, with chandeliers hanging from white tents and a small quartet playing classical music under blooming wisteria. Vanessa, my older sister, looked like she had stepped out of a bridal magazine, all lace and elegance, surrounded by bridesmaids in soft blush gowns. I was there too, in my navy blue dress, standing behind the scenes, helping organize everything from floral deliveries to slideshow timing. I didn't mind not being a bridesmaid. Vanessa said she wanted a specific aesthetic and joked that my hair color clashed with the palette. That's Vanessa. Subtle cruelty always wrapped in a silk ribbon of charm. I was in charge of playing the Wedding Memories video, a 5-minute montage of childhood photos, family vacations, and clips of Vanessa and her fiancé Daniel. She had handed me the USB drive that morning and told me where to plug it in for the reception. I'd barely eaten all day. I'd been running errands for hours. But when the time came to play the video, I took a breath, double-checked the sound levels, and clicked play. The first minute went smoothly, shots of the two of them in Paris, Vanessa feeding ducks to children in Ghana, Daniel laughing at some picnic. Then, something changed. A short clip came on the screen. It was blurry at first, but unmistakable. Vanessa, in her bedroom, kissing someone who was very clearly not Daniel. The room fell into a stunned silence, gasping, then confusion, then a voice. Daniel's voice, "What the hell is this?" I froze. My heart dropped. I hadn't seen that clip during editing. I would have remembered. I looked around panicked, unsure what had happened. Then Vanessa screamed. "You did this!" she shrieked, pointing at me with trembling hands. "You sabotaged my wedding." I couldn't speak. I was stunned. Before I could gather my thoughts, my mother stormed toward me and slapped me so hard my earring flew off. My father's voice roared over the chaos. "You've always been jealous of your sister. But this is sick." I tried to explain to say I hadn't inserted anything. I used the video she gave me. But no one wanted to hear it. Vanessa collapsed dramatically onto a chair, sobbing, her makeup streaming down her cheeks. Daniel looked lost. Guests started whispering, pointing. Some pulled out their phones. "You're disgusting," my mother hissed at me. "You've ruined her life, her future." I stood there trembling, humiliated, broken, and in that moment, surrounded by people who were supposed to love me, I felt completely alone. I was asked to leave, told to get my things, and go. A security guard walked me out of the venue like I was a criminal. No one asked for my side of the story. No one wondered why I would do something so vile, so cruel, because in their eyes, I already was. I sat in my car parked just outside the vineyard gates, hands shaking on the steering wheel, trying to breathe. I didn't know what hurt more, the betrayal, the humiliation, or the fact that my own parents didn't even hesitate to turn against me. But what none of them knew, not my sister, not my parents, not even me, was that I had unknowingly been wearing a small wireless microphone that entire morning. My best friend who worked in media with me had been testing out a new lav mic system for our video projects. She clipped it to my dress before the ceremony as a joke and said, "Let's see if it picks up your bossy wedding planner energy." I'd forgotten all about it. Until I got a text later that night after the worst day of my life. "You won't believe what your mic picked up. I think you need to hear this. Call me." At that moment, I didn't know if I had the strength to relive anything. But something deep inside, maybe desperation, maybe instinct, told me I needed to hear what she had. Because if there was even the smallest chance I could prove the truth, I had to try. I wasn't going to let them bury me in silence. Not this time. Not ever again. I wasn't born into a bad family. At least that's what I used to tell myself. On the surface, we looked perfect, the Turners, well-dressed, well-spoken, well-liked. My father ran a successful dental clinic, and my mother was the head of the local community board. Sunday church summer vacations in the Carolinas, family portraits every Christmas. But if you scratched even slightly beneath the surface, things began to peel. My sister Vanessa was the golden child from the day she was born. She had the kind of beauty that turned heads, the kind of charm that disarmed you, and the ability to manipulate a room with a smile. She got the best room in the house, the biggest allowance, the most leniency. When she came home drunk at 16, Mom covered for her. When she crashed Dad's car at 17, he paid it off quietly and told me never to bring it up again. Meanwhile, I was the responsible one. The one who got straight A's, stayed home, helped with chores, and never made a scene. And yet I was always too quiet, too sensitive, too cold. I learned early that my role in the family wasn't to shine. It was to support the one who did. By the time we were adults, the gap only widened. Vanessa had turned her picture-perfect image into a career. Influencer, lifestyle blogger, aspiring TV personality. She posted about yoga retreats and organic skincare, while privately screaming at baristas for using the wrong milk. I worked in a creative agency downtown managing corporate video campaigns. I loved my job even if it wasn't glamorous. It was stable, it was honest, and I was good at it. But no one in my family ever asked about my work. Vanessa got a billboard campaign once they framed it above the fireplace. I got a promotion, they forgot to mention it at dinner. Still, I tried to stay close. I showed up, I helped, I let the little things slide because that's what you do when you want peace, right? But peace never really existed in our house. There was only Vanessa's spotlight and the shadows the rest of us were expected to live in. Things got worse last year when she started dating Daniel. He was handsome, wealthy, came from a family in real estate, and had that polite, polished energy that made him instantly likable. They got engaged within 6 months, and suddenly the family dynamic shifted even more. My parents were over the moon. Vanessa's finally met someone on her level. My mother beamed. This wedding will be the talk of the year. I was happy for her genuinely, even though I had reservations. I'd seen things, little things, the way Vanessa spoke to him when she thought no one was watching, the way she flirted with other men at parties. Once I caught her texting someone named Mason at 2 a.m., while Daniel was asleep upstairs. She saw me notice and smiled. "He's just an old friend," she whispered. Old friend or not, I felt something tighten in my stomach that night. Something was off. Still, I kept my mouth shut. Because if I'd learned anything in my family, it was this calling out Vanessa only made me the villain. So I stayed quiet. And that silence cost me everything. When the wedding planning began, I was looped in mostly for free labor. Vanessa didn't want to hire a professional video editor, so she asked me to handle the visual side of things. "Grace, you're the techie one," she'd said over coffee. "I don't want it to look too cheesy. I trust your taste." I agreed. Of course I did. Because somewhere deep down I still hoped that doing well, being helpful, reliable, might earn me some part of their respect. So I took time off work, spent weekends compiling childhood clips, scanning photo albums, syncing music, even color grading home videos. A few days before the wedding, Vanessa handed me a USB stick labeled Final Cut. "All the files are in here," she said. "Just add the photos from the rehearsal dinner at the end. I'm too busy to deal with it." I didn't think twice. Why would I? We were sisters. I should have thought twice. On the morning of the wedding, I was exhausted from 2 straight nights of editing and last-minute logistics. The bridesmaids were running late, the florist forgot the boutonnieres, and Vanessa had a full-blown meltdown because the champagne wasn't cold enough. Still, I pushed through, doing what I always did, making sure everyone else looked good, while I disappeared into the background. I wore a simple navy dress, no makeup, except for some lip balm and flats, because I knew I'd be running around. That's when my coworker and best friend Rachel showed up to drop off a spare lens I'd forgotten. She laughed when she saw me. "You look like an underpaid event coordinator." "Because I joked. She clipped a tiny lavalier mic to my neckline. "Humor me," she said. "I want to test the sound on this thing. Just wear it until the reception. We'll delete everything later." I didn't think it mattered. At that point, nothing about the day felt about me anyway. But that little Mike, that casual, forgettable Mike, would soon become the only voice I had left. Because when everything went up in flames and my family turned on me, it was the one thing that caught the truth. A truth no one wanted to believe. Until they had no choice. The reception hall glowed with soft gold lights as guests filtered in holding glasses of champagne and commenting on the perfection of it all. The air was thick with the scent of roses and candle wax. Vanessa looked radiant in her second dress of the night, a silk off-the-shoulder number that hugged her curves and floated behind her like royalty. The photo booth was buzzing. The buffet line was forming. Everyone was waiting for the big moment, the couple's wedding slideshow. I was at the tech booth making final adjustments. I had the USB Vanessa gave me loaded into the laptop. The video file was labeled Play Me. Simple. Final. Vanessa had passed by 20 minutes earlier, clutching her bouquet, fake laughing with her maid of honor. She barely acknowledged me, except for a tight smile and one sentence. Make sure it's the right file. Okay, don't mess it up. I remember nodding. Then I hit play. It started with soft piano music and faded in with a photo of Vanessa and Daniel at the beach wind in their hair smiles wide, everyone awed appropriately. The next few slides showed childhood pictures of Vanessa, clips of her and Daniel at family events, short messages from friends. It was all going perfectly until it wasn't. The screen suddenly cut to a shaky video. Different lighting, a bedroom, a close-up of Vanessa sitting on the edge of a bed laughing. Then someone, not Daniel, leaned in and kissed her. The room went silent. At first, people thought it was some kind of joke, but then the audio kicked in. Don't worry, Vanessa's voice said. He'll never know. Daniel's too clueless to see it. Someone gasped. Someone else dropped a glass. And then Daniel stood up. What is this? He demanded, staring at the screen. My hands flew to the keyboard, fumbling to close the video, but it was already too late. The image was burned into everyone's memory. Vanessa froze in place for a split second, her face pale. Then, like clockwork, her eyes welled up with tears. She turned toward me. You put that in there, she said, her voice trembling. You did this to me. Every eye in the room turned toward me. What? I stammered. No, I didn't. My mother appeared out of nowhere, her face twisted in shock and rage. You edited this video, she said, accusing. You were the only one touching the files. My father stood behind her, silent but fuming. I used the files she gave me. I tried to explain. She gave me that USB on Thursday. I didn't. You are jealous of her. Vanessa cried out loud and high-pitched. You always have been. And you ruined my wedding because you can't stand seeing me happy. I took a step back. I looked at her, really looked at her. The tears, the shaking hands, the broken voice, it was all a performance. She was winning the room, and I had no way to defend myself. Daniel stormed out. His best man followed him. Someone whispered that his parents were calling off the reception. Guests began leaving. The atmosphere had shifted from celebration to scandal in seconds. Then came the slap. My mother, shaking with fury, walked up to me and struck me across the face. You embarrassed us, she hissed. You humiliated your sister, your own flesh and blood. I stood frozen, hand on my cheek, the sting burning more from betrayal than pain. My father stepped in, taking me by the arm. Leave, he said flatly. Now. But I didn't get out. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. I turned and walked out, the air around me cold, despite the heat of the July night. Outside the venue, guests were still buzzing, some in disbelief, others gleefully filming reactions for social media. I found my car, got in, locked the doors, and I cried. Not soft, controlled crying. It was guttural, years of being ignored, sidelined, gaslighted, crashing over me all at once. I cried for the little girl who spent hours waiting for someone to notice her. I cried for the teenager who was told she was too serious, too plain, too much. And I cried because no matter how hard I tried to show up for my family, they had shown me who they truly were. That was when my phone buzzed. A text from Rachel. You need to listen to the audio from earlier today. Trust me. I blinked, confused. I'm serious. It's all there. I haven't deleted it yet. Then she sent a file, a voice memo. I stared at it for a long time. I didn't want to relive any part of that day. but something inside me, that flicker of rage of disbelief, made me press play. At first, I just heard background noise. Wind, footsteps, the shuffle of papers, then voices. Vanessa's voice. "I know what I'm doing, Rachel. Trust me." She won't even notice. Another voice, mine. "Are you sure you want this clip in the video? You labeled it Final Cut, but it doesn't look like the rest of the files." Vanessa again, impatient. "Just leave it in. It's a prank for Daniel. He'll think it's funny. I'll explain later. Just don't mention it to anyone." Okay, I paused the audio. My hand trembled. She had set me up. She had given me the file. She had told me to keep quiet. And then she turned around and accused me of trying to destroy her. I felt my heart rate spike. The mic. I had forgotten all about the mic Rachel had clipped to me earlier. It had recorded everything. The setup, the manipulation, the moment that would clear my name. And now I had proof. Actual proof. I sent the voice memo to myself and saved it twice, Cloud and Drive. Then I sat back, wiped my face, and let out a slow, bitter laugh. She thought she could ruin me, that no one would believe me. And maybe, if it weren't for that mic, no one would have. But now I had something more powerful than my word. I had evidence, and I was going to use it. I didn't sleep that night. I stayed up in my apartment with the lights off, phone in hand, playing the voice memo over and over until every word was seared into my brain. Each time Vanessa's voice came through smug and certain, I felt something in me shift from disbelief to anger, from anger to focus. By sunrise, I had already backed up the file in 5 different places. I sent it to Rachel, who promised to hold on to a copy in case anything happened. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do with it yet, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to stay silent. Not this time. That morning, my parents sent a single icy text. "We're meeting with the Warrens at 4 p.m. to apologize for your behavior. You are not to contact Vanessa." I stared at the screen. No question, no concern. Just control. At noon, Rachel and I sat at her kitchen table sipping coffee and staring at my laptop screen. "You need to let people hear it," she said. "Who my parents? They don't care. They've already picked a side. Then let everyone else hear it." Her words sat heavy in the air. I thought about it, about uploading the file, about emailing it to Daniel, the wedding planner, the photographer, hell, even the venue coordinator who watched me get dragged out like a criminal. But I didn't want revenge through gossip. I wanted truth. So I picked the most neutral, controlled route I could think of: Vanessa herself. That afternoon, I sent her an email. No subject line, just the audio file. No words, just the evidence. 2 hours later, my phone rang. Block number. I answered. "You bitch," she hissed. "Hello, Vanessa. You recorded me. You gave me the mic," I said calmly. Well, technically, Rachel did. But yes, I was wearing it the whole morning. Accidentally. "This is illegal?" "It's not. California's a 2-party state, but you were speaking to me, and I was the one being accused in public. That makes it admissible as evidence." She was silent. I could practically hear her world tilting. "What do you want?" she finally asked. That question made me pause. What did I want? Not an apology. I didn't believe she was capable of one. Not reconciliation. I didn't want her in my life. "I want the truth," I said. "And I want you to tell our parents exactly what you did." "They won't believe me," she whispered. "Doesn't matter. I'll play the audio for them myself if I have to." That night, I asked my parents to meet me at their house. For once, they agreed without question, probably assuming I was ready to beg for forgiveness. I arrived with Rachel by my side and a Bluetooth speaker in my bag. My mother opened the door, still in pearls and pressed slacks. My father stood behind her, arms crossed. "You have 5 minutes," he said. "I won't need that long." We sat in the living room, the same room where Vanessa's graduation photos hung in gold frames, and my college diploma was nowhere in sight. I set the speaker down on the table. "I just want you to hear something." They looked at each other, then reluctantly nodded. I pressed play. Vanessa's voice filled the room. The laughter, the casual cruelty, the admission that it was all a setup. At first, my mother blinked in confusion. My father's face drained of color. By the end of the clip, neither of them said a word. I let the silence sit, let it swell, let it sting. Then I stood up. That's what really happened. My mother opened her mouth then closed it. Her lips trembled. My father looked away. She set me up, I continued. And you believed her without hesitation. You humiliated me. You let everyone think I tried to destroy her wedding. And not once did either of you ask me what really happened. Rachel placed a folder on the table. Just so you know, this is legally documented, she said. It's been submitted to our attorney. I didn't care about lawsuits. I just wanted them to really understand what they had done. My mother finally looked at me. I didn't know. You didn't want to, I said. That's the difference. Then I walked out. I didn't wait for an apology. I didn't expect one. Some truths don't need validation to be real. Later that night, I sent the audio to Daniel. He responded in less than 10 minutes. Thank you. I needed this. I'm sorry no one believed you. That was it. No grand gesture, no heroic redemption arc. But it was enough. Vanessa's engagement was officially called off the next morning. The wedding photos were never posted. The influencer deals she had lined up quietly disappeared. And as for my parents, I didn't hear from them again for months. Not a call, not a text. But I wasn't empty. I wasn't broken. I had truth. I had evidence. I had the one thing they couldn't take from me this time. And for the first time in years, I wasn't ashamed of who I was. I was done being the scapegoat. Now I was the one telling the story. News travels fast in our community, especially when it's scandalous. I hadn't planned on it spreading, but Daniel told his side of the story to his family, and someone, maybe his mother, maybe a mutual friend, leaked the audio. Within days, it was everywhere. A clip of Vanessa's voice admitting to setting me up was circulating in private group chats, forums, even a wedding vendor subreddit. At first, I panicked. I never wanted this to become viral revenge. But strangely, it wasn't me people were criticizing. It was her, the influencer, the lifestyle icon, the bride with a picture-perfect life caught red-handed. Her brand crumbled. She lost a major sponsorship with a wellness company the same week. They didn't make a statement. They didn't need to. She was quietly scrubbed from their pages. People I barely knew began reaching out, old classmates, former coworkers, even distant cousins, all saying the same thing. I always thought something was off about her. That's the thing about a perfect image. One crack, and suddenly everyone sees what they'd been ignoring. As for my parents, it took them 3 weeks to reach out again. My mother emailed, not to apologize, but to ask me to help Vanessa manage the PR damage. I stared at the message for a long time. Not a single word about what they had done to me. No mention of the slap, the humiliation, the public rejection. Just concern for their golden child's image. I didn't reply. Rachel and I started meeting with a therapist, not because I thought I was broken, but because I wanted to finally understand the patterns I had lived in for so long. She helped me see something important. I had spent years trying to earn love that came with conditions. Be quieter, be less assertive, don't push back, stay small. And the moment I stopped doing that, the moment I stood up and said no, this is the truth. They didn't know how to love me anymore. But I didn't need them to, because something strange happened in the months after the wedding. I started getting invitations not to parties or events, but to small dinners, coffee catch-ups, book clubs. Real people, honest people. I met Sarah, a former florist, who had worked the wedding and saw the aftermath. She told me I've been through something like that too. I met Laura, an older woman in our building, who brought over banana bread one morning and said, "You remind me of my daughter." She never backed down either. Piece by piece, I began to build a new kind of community, one where I didn't have to shrink myself to fit, one where my voice didn't need to be recorded to matter. Meanwhile, Vanessa went quiet, completely silent on social media, no updates, no posts, just gone. And honestly, I didn't feel sorry for her. Not because I wanted her to suffer, but because I had finally stopped carrying her pain like it was my job. For so long, I felt responsible for her moods, her chaos, her cruelty. But now, she was just another adult who had to deal with the consequences of her own choices. About 2 months later, I received a handwritten letter, no return address. The handwriting was familiar. It was from her, Vanessa. I hesitated before opening it. Part of me didn't want to hear her voice again, not even on paper. But curiosity won. The letter was short. Not dramatic. Not emotional. Just tired. She wrote, "I never thought I was the villain. I thought I was surviving. I was always afraid you'd outshine me. So I decided to dim you instead. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know I finally see it. And I'm sorry." I folded the letter and put it in a drawer. I wasn't ready to respond. Maybe I never would. But for the first time, her words didn't control me. They didn't define me. They were just hers. She could keep them. A week later, my mother called. I let it ring. Then again. Then again. On the fifth attempt, I picked up. "Grace," she said, her voice strained. "Your father and I. We didn't handle things well." I waited. "We've started therapy. Separately. Together. We're trying to understand what we did. What we didn't see." I stayed quiet. "We miss you," she added. "We want you back in our lives." "I'm not the same person anymore," I said slowly. "And I don't know if I want to come back into a life where I was never really allowed to exist." There was silence. "I understand," she whispered. "I just hope someday, maybe you'll let us earn your trust again." I didn't say yes. I didn't say no. I just said, "We'll see." And for now, that was enough. I wasn't angry anymore. I was tired, but in a peaceful way, like someone who had been treading water for years and finally reached the shore. The fallout was messy. It wasn't a clean ending. There were no bows, no perfect resolutions. But it was real. And for the first time, I wasn't the scapegoat. I was simply Grace, a woman who told the truth, a woman who survived being silenced, and who now had no intention of going quiet ever again. 6 months passed. The air was cooler, now crisp with the kind of California winter that made scarves optional but cozy. I'd moved into a new apartment, small, sunlit, filled with secondhand furniture and first-time peace. My mornings no longer started with checking social media for damage control. I didn't answer passive-aggressive group texts or tiptoe through family conversations designed to spotlight Vanessa's every accomplishment. I woke up to birds outside my window, made my own coffee the way I liked it, and opened the blinds slowly, not fearing what the day might bring. Therapy became a steady rhythm in my life. Every Wednesday at 10 a.m., I met with Dr. Lindstrom, a woman in her 60s with quiet eyes and a talent for hearing the things I wasn't saying. At first, I spent our sessions talking about Vanessa, about my parents, about that night at the wedding. But eventually, we stopped talking about them. We started talking about me, about how I had learned to measure my worth by how useful I could be to others, about how I'd mistaken compliance for love, about the little girl who tried to disappear so no one would call her too much, and the woman who eventually forgot she had the right to take up space. Dr. Lindstrom never offered me easy solutions. She offered me questions, real ones. What do you want your life to look like, Grace? Where do you feel safest? What kind of people make you feel whole? And maybe most importantly, what parts of yourself have you been silencing to be acceptable? It was hard. Harder than standing up at that wedding. Because standing up in front of a crowd who hates you is one thing. But standing up for yourself, to yourself, that's a different battle. I cried a lot, but I also laughed more than I had in years. Rachel and I became closer than ever. She helped me launch a passion project I'd been dreaming about, a small creative studio focused on storytelling for women. Real stories. Real. Not polished influencer reels, not picture-perfect wedding edits, just truth. Our first client was a local nonprofit that helped survivors of domestic emotional abuse reclaim their voices. The irony wasn't lost on me, but it didn't feel heavy. It felt healing. I shared my story too. Not all at once, but in parts, pieces, at open mic nights, in online forums, in quiet conversations with strangers who became friends. Every time I told it, I felt lighter. Not because the pain vanished, it didn't, but because I stopped hiding it. I made space for my own voice, and that changed everything. My parents tried to reach out again in December. They sent a Christmas card, a generic one but signed in my mother's handwriting. "We're thinking of you." I didn't respond, not because I wanted to punish them, but because I wasn't ready. Healing isn't linear, and it isn't about satisfying anyone's timeline but your own. And for once, I was okay with that. Vanessa never contacted me directly again. But I heard she had enrolled in a group therapy program through a mutual acquaintance. She was off social media, out of the spotlight. Part of me wondered if she was truly changing. Part of me didn't care. I wasn't responsible for her anymore. I was responsible for me. On the first weekend of the new year, I hosted a small brunch at my place. Just a few people: Rachel, Sarah, the florist Laura from my building, and a woman named Diane who'd come to one of my storytelling nights and cried through the whole thing. We sat around my thrifted dining table, passing pancakes and pouring mimosas, talking about everything and nothing. No performance, no pretense, just real, flawed, beautiful people. At some point, Rachel raised a glass. "To Grace," she said, "for finally taking her story back." Everyone smiled. I didn't say anything right away. I looked around the room at these women, at this home, at the person I was becoming. And I realized something. That moment at the wedding, as awful as it was, hadn't been the end of my story. It was the beginning, the rupture that forced everything false to fall away, the spotlight I never asked for shining just long enough to reveal what had always been there: me, still standing, still telling the truth, still growing, and finally free. It's strange looking back now. For years, I thought survival meant staying small, being agreeable, staying out of the way, keeping the peace, even when it hurt. I thought that was what love required. But it wasn't love. It was fear dressed up as duty. And once that fear cracked, once the truth came pouring out raw and messy and undeniable, I realized something. Sometimes the life you build after everything falls apart is the one that was meant for you all along. There are still days when the echoes come back, when I hear my father's voice disappointed and cold, when I remember the sting of my mother's slap, when I see the way Vanessa's eyes sharpened just before she turned the world against me. But now those memories don't define me. They don't drown me. They're just part of the trail I walked to get here. I've learned to grieve the family I never really had, the kind that sees you, believes you, protects you. But I've also learned that family isn't always about blood. It's about choice, boundaries, safety, respect. And more than anything, it's about truth. The truth I had to speak when no one wanted to hear it. The truth that waited patiently for its moment, caught on a mic I didn't even remember wearing. I think about that often, how something so small, so seemingly insignificant saved me. And it makes me wonder how many other women are out there carrying truths no one believes. How many are being painted as jealous, dramatic, overreacting, when they're simply trying to survive. If this story finds even one of them, if it makes one person stop and think, maybe she's telling the truth, then everything I went through was worth it. Sometimes the hardest thing you can do is stand your ground when the entire room turns against you. But if you keep standing, the truth has a way of rising to meet you. It might take time, it might hurt like hell, but it comes. It always comes. Now, when I wake up each morning, I don't ask myself, "What will they think of me?" I ask, "What do I think of myself?" And most days I can answer honestly, I'm proud. Not because I was perfect, not because I handled every moment with grace, but because I kept going. Because I told the truth, because I stopped shrinking, because I chose me. And that's something no one can take away, not even family.